Okay, so Henry Cavill's been sacked as Superman, which is pretty depressing. Not great fun. His replacement, or replacements, black, or trans, or both.
I have literally seen Elliot Page being bandied about as a potential replacement. I want to see that. I want to see that just for the meme.
I definitely don't
Just
want to see
do it.
that. No.
No, do it. James Gunn, do it. Do it. See what the fan reaction is, James. Go on.
Don't want them to go down in flames because if the movie side starts collapsing, it justifies why Warner Brothers should just axe all of DC Comics or just license out their characters to even more progressives who will just burn the legacy of it. Now, that being said, I don't buy anything after 2018.
I was going to say, I don't know if you've seen the quality of DC's content recently. I am not Starfire.
I'm like an
Gotham
ostrich
High
at this
School?
point. I just don't. Heroes in Crisis was bad enough. I'm just plugging my ears.
So maybe the industry should just collapse. Maybe we're at that point. Maybe just morally speaking, as a moral prescription, the comics industry should collapse for its own good.
Harry practicing cultural accelerationism. You'll be happy to know then that The Witcher, which is a terrible series as well, the bastardization of the books, is also going to collapse because they've got Liam Hemsworth to replace Henry Cavill because Henry Cavill got so frustrated with the writing staff that he just walked.
And this will be for the fourth series, by the way, because I think he was involved in the filming for the entirety of the third series, so it's going to be even more jarring for people watching the third series, knowing in advance that he's going to be replaced by the end of it.
Those few of you still putting up with it. Let's look at the baseless smears that they've put on Henry Cavill since leaving The Witcher and see where the world's strongest nerd is going to next. I did want to just point to, as well, if you want some solid comic book and pop culture content, Harry and I have started a series on the website, now on the third episode, speaking of iconic portrayals of Superman, talking about comics. It's Comics Corner. We're on the third episode here. The missteps of DC in the 90s are looking like a golden age compared to what they're doing now. And you might be surprised by our analysis of Kingdom Come because it gets the Bible wrong. It seems to be adherent to the Boom of Truth regime, but the art is magnificent. I think that's why
art
it's
is
remembered
gorgeous, and
favourably.
there's enough glimpses of absolute gold in the narrative and characters to make it still a worthwhile comic to read, just nowhere near as good as I remembered it being. Seriously, do watch this one because it's about much more than just Kingdom Come. This was a labour of love from Connor, where he brought all of his comic book knowledge to the table and just went off, and it was fantastic to see, and it was really informative for anybody who's wondering for maybe a start on comic book information. Connor goes through so much that this can kind of be a crash course for 90s comic books.
Yeah, it's like an epochs of comics.
Yeah.
Though, I will say, even though I am a very major DC fan, thou shalt not worship false idols. Because we go on to this one. Yesterday, when the Congress people were sworn in after the midterms, someone swore himself in off of a copy of Superman #1. That's unbelievably cringeworthy. Like, I understand that in England, we see Lord of the Rings as kind of a cultural touchstone, a monomyth that isn't related to anything that historically or is explicitly Christian, that it actually happened, that it's theological, but it touches on the English sentiment. In the same way, American comic books, superheroes, are kind of a secular cultural monomyth. It lasted throughout the Cold War. It says a lot about how the Americans think of themselves. And that's
The
why it's
Morrison thesis.
Yeah, well, not quite, because Morrison thinks we can transcend to a plane of aliens that abducted in Kathmandu by keep writing
the
comics until we
Morrison
get
thesis without
ethical.
the psychedelics.
Sure. But that doesn't mean it's a displacement for the core cornerstone texts that have specifically the Bible, that have founded the American Republic. Even placing it alongside things like the Torah or the Quran, which I fundamentally disagree with. I understand why you'd swear on those. And religion shouldn't be subverted, they currently are. But pop cultural products are ripe for leftist capture and the inversion of their values. And so what you are doing is you are acting as a billboard for someone else's ideals, and also ideals that have been hollowed out from the inside and reappropriated by Jonathan Kent, Superman's gay son who goes on school climate strikes as his pink-haired boyfriend.
Truth, Justice, and a Better Tomorrow. That's the new one. Truth, Justice, and the Progressive Vision is what they're saying.
Not fantastic, no. So we can go on to next how it's being subverted in the film industry, because Henry Cavill, a couple of weeks after announcing he's back as Superman, having cameoed in Black Adam, has then announced that when James Gunn and Peter Safran took over DC Films, because James Gunn keeps failing upwards after the flop of the Suicide Squad and the fact that he keeps joking about touching children, that he's been sacked. And nobody was happy about this.
I will be fair, his jokes about touching children were about 15 years ago. Still weird that he made them, though. Still weird that he made them.
Jokes. Yeah, jokes. So no matter how you felt about it, no matter how you felt about the Snyderverse, they've sabotaged the integrity of the Snyderverse by chopping half an hour off of BVS and bastardizing the Justice League cut. They've also sabotaged the success of their universe because everyone loved Henry Cavill as Superman. He was perfect casting, no matter how differently you or I, for example, felt about the scripting of Man of Steel. He had unbelievable potential.
One of my biggest complaints about the Snyder trilogy was that I felt that Cavill was massively, despite being Superman and the most fitting Superman we've had in decades, he was underutilized. Was one of my problems with him. I felt that he should have been more talkative in Batman v Superman, and I really enjoyed the ultimate cut of Batman v Superman. He only has something like 60 lines of dialogue. He's very quiet in those films, and it's like Henry Cavill is incredibly handsome, he's very charming, he's well-spoken, he's got great screen presence. Why wouldn't you try and utilise him as much as possible?
I think they used him very effectively, not to get into a discussion about the film, but
let's carry on.
But we all wanted a sequel, right? And instead, what they did was, they made his return not contingent on the amount of fans that would actually pay money to support seeing him on screen again. They made it contingent on how many fans would not only go and see Black Adam, which looked like garbage, but also, and it was garbage, by the way, but also stick around until after the credits to watch an end credit scene, which DC doesn't usually have, where they give him the slick curl and John Williams' score, which he never had before, so it doesn't fit the continuity of the character. And then they said, well, Black Adam didn't make much money, so I guess you don't want Henry Cavill anymore. This was manufacturing consent to say, we want to reboot the universe, so we're going to sabotage every single stepping stone along the way and take away what the fans want on the grounds of it just won't be profitable. Definitely not. Never mind the Suicide Squad bombed at the box office. Never mind Birds of Prey was wholly repudiated by saying, you guys bastardized the characters and I don't want to see a feminist revision of Harley Quinn, thank you very much. They're still going to do it anyway. And now they're rebooting the entire universe. Oh joy. So let's go on to the Jezebel hit piece, because of course this archived piece, by the way, because I think they were fearing some kind of defamation lawsuit or something like that.
Fearing backlash from people, I imagine, as well, because people really like Henry Cavill because he just seems like a really nice guy.
He's an upstanding fella. They complain a lot in this article, and they just wanted to rub salt in the wound after he lost 2 jobs and just deride him as a toxic gamer bro. So I suppose...
Don't make me love him more.
Well, if you're watching, Henry, please come on the show because you're a personal hero. Starts off with, someone on the show compared Cavill's behaviour to watching someone get brainwashed by QAnon, an insider from The Witcher told Dis-moi, which is just a gossip account on Twitter. But this is their source, trust me, bro. Anonymous insiders are now claiming that Cavill is actually departing the Superman and Witcher franchises due to the actor's alleged workplace misogyny. I want endless movies from this man.
Well, I'm sorry. I've seen an interview from the Man of Steel promo run that they were doing for the marketing for that, where Amy Adams and the female interviewer were just objectifying Henry Cavill, and gushing over him, talking about how big his muscles are. It's so distracting to work alongside him.
Amy Adams said she enjoyed snogging him.
Yeah, exactly.
He trained with Feora, the actress. Gal Gadot was really good friends with him. Did you see the Witcher interviews where both female leads, Ciri and what's-her-face, Indian woman, were giving him the side-eye as he was talking?
Yeah. And to be fair, Henry takes all of... I'd honestly be very awkward about all of that. As much as it's a compliment, I would be very awkward. Henry seemed to be taking it with a bit of, oh, shucks kind of mentality.
He's very gentlemanly.
Yeah, he was very gentlemanly about it.
Per the popular and often prophetic gossip account Dis-moi, last week a source said that while filming seasons 2 and 3 of The Witcher, something shifted and Cavill became really impossible for women to work with, which has always been a big problem, but even worse here because the showrunner is a woman.
Did he not respond to your advances?
Showrunner's a woman. Explains the quality. According to Dis-moi's podcast, the source said he would try to overrule her and get changes made last minute across the board without her knowledge, which, if you know anything about showrunning, is completely effed. As a result of Cavill's behaviour, the source said that the female writers and directors on The Witcher were suddenly completely ignored on set, unable to do their jobs, and that every department head was complaining. The source was clear that Cavill didn't engage in any sexual misconduct. That's probably the reason why they're mad, because he just wouldn't shag them. But his behaviour was disrespectful and toxic all the same.
No, what happened was, and we know this because he gave interviews about it at the time, in Season 2 of The Witcher...
I've got that in a minute.
Oh, all right, I'll let you carry on.
Let's not spoil. Cavill is deeply addicted to video games to the point where it was like working with any other addict. He was distracted, he was late, he was obsessive, and a lot of people think that the misogyny came from the gamer world. Hello. Video game bro language is not how you talk to coworkers, and he wouldn't stop. So when they're saying he's obsessively playing the games, do they mean The Witcher? Because it would make sense for actors to be doing research while on set. So he may have been the only guy on set who actually played the goddamn games in the first place, and that makes sense as to why he was the only one who was giving continuity, novel, and game-accurate advice to the showrunners who showed open contempt for the source material.
And also, I've read enough interviews with actors and people on production sets and spoken to these people well enough to know that people only really give up when they know that a production is just worthless.
Yeah.
If they know a production is just too far gone, that's when they all start to give up and start to show up and late and be obsessed and do other things instead. It seems that Henry was just ahead of the curve than the rest of them on this.
If nobody's seen the documentary on the making of the film The Island of Dr. Moreau and what an absolute shitstorm that was, go and give yourself a good time.
Where the original director ran into the woods so he could try and spy on the production after he got fired. Oh, watch the Critical Drinkers little video on that. It's a good one.
Amazing. So instead of cooperating with the show's women leaders and set workers, the insider claims Cavill formed a weird alliance with one writer who is also a gamer. This writer eventually got fired after multiple HR complaints were made. We'll get onto him in a moment because I think I've identified who it is. According to Demois, the insider said someone on the show compared Cavill's gamer bro radicalization to watching someone get brainwashed by QAnon. They explained his whole personality shifted. Eventually, his disrespect escalated. This disrespect led to Cavill rewriting scenes without alerting other actors until moments before the scenes were shot. You mean like, who was the fella that played Roy in, recently died in Blade Runner, who the night before said Ridley Scott, my death is really boring, so I'll write the entire Tears in Rain monologue, and it's gone down as one of the best.
Oh my goodness! How have I forgotten his name?
Rutger Hauer.
Rutger Hauer. Yes, thank you.
Exactly. Fantastic things can come from the character insight that an actor has if they're really committed to the role. But no, your ears were closed to it.
It was Rutger Hauer.
Rutger Hauer. Yeah, I added a D on the end. That's my fault. Fantastic insight can come from actors who are really committed to the characters because they are enmeshed in their roles. But no, the people who created The Witcher TV show don't care because they want to use it as a Trojan horse for ideologically propagandizing their audience and inserting diversity retroactively into Polish mythology. So it doesn't matter how Henry Cavill was committed to the role and wanted to serve as the fans. He was an impediment on their road to utopia. He was a speed bump whose career should just be driven straight over. Also, this disrespect led to Cavill not only rewriting scenes, but he decided that he didn't want any romantic scenes at all. No kissing, no shirtless scenes, Demois continued. Additionally, Cavill wanted complete control of storylines, but obviously, as this isn't an actor's job, he really had no idea of the limitations of TV, structure, and budget. You bastards will stretch the budget to have whatever ideological nonsense in it you want. Don't make me laugh.
No, I'm sorry, I just love the idea that all of the women on set were just really furious he wouldn't take his top off or kiss any of them.
Stop objectifying me.
That's obviously what's going on right there. He didn't want any romantic scenes.
Well, do you remember that Age of Ultron?
Or maybe it's because he looked at the people they cast as his romantic interests. He's like,
yeah, with Yennefer's crooked nose. No thanks. Do you remember Age of Ultron where Scarlett Johansson was saying, "Oh, I've been sexually objectified by my outfit," or Elizabeth Olsen was saying it, and in that same movie, Thor is shirtless like 3 times. Every Marvel film finds an excuse to get the bloke shirtless to put the drama geeks on steroids center frame because women like looking at shirtless men, shockingly enough. And the beta males that write it can't get over the fact that even very left-wing women like those stupid sexy Trump supporters, most muscular men turn out to be conservative. I think it gives us an indication as to why Cavill's political leanings, which he has never fully expressed, are at odds with the feminist showrunners of The Witcher.
Yeah, let's be fair as well. This information that we're reading from does basically just come from some gossip.
Oh no, they've got interviews with Cavill that they've divined from the tea leaves as to be misogynistic. If you're not fully inclined to believe in an anonymous gossip account, I get it, but there's a pretty extensive paper trail of less than feminist comments and behaviour from Cavill. Bravo, sir.
Like eating red meat.
Yeah, and not being a simp. Relevant to allegations of workplace sexism in 2015, Cavill disclosed to Men's Fitness that he once became overexcited while filming a sex scene for the Tudors in the 2000s. Quote, "A girl had to be on top of me, she had spectacular breasts, and I hadn't arranged my stuff into a harmless position. She's basically rubbing herself against me, and it got a bit inconvenient, shall we say."
Wait, how is that his fault? He's a man. His body reacted as you would expect a man's body to react in that situation. How is this sexist in any way? Oh wait, because it's a man. Because it's a man
like
acting
breasts.
like man.
Welcome to the insights from the Lotus Eaters that you've never heard before. In a 2018 interview with GQ Australia, Cavill suggested Me Too ruined dating. There's something wonderful about a man chasing a woman. I think a woman should be wooed and chased, but maybe I'm old-fashioned for thinking that. As a result of Me Too, Cavill continued, it's very difficult to do that if there are certain rules in place. I don't want to go up and talk to her because I'm going to be called a rapist or something. So Henry Cavill's a sensible centrist.
All right. Yeah, that's a shockingly normal statement to come from someone in Hollywood.
Women should be flattered and earned, and men shouldn't be accused of being a rapist if they just talk to them. Sensible. Not according to the radicals, of course. Now, we all know that The Witcher chose diversity over accuracy, and I think I've found the specific HR complained writer and executive that Cavill befriended but was ousted because Beau DeMaio was kicked off the show on season 2. And he said, I've been on a show, namely The Witcher, where some of the writers were not or actively disliked the books and games, even actively mocking the source material. And he was the former producer and writer. It's a recipe for disaster and bad morale. Fandom as a litmus test checks egos and makes all the long nights worth it. You have to respect the work before you're allowed to add to its legacy.
And this just reminds me of the Marvel producer who said, oh yeah, when we get writers and directors in, we make sure that they don't like the comics before.
Like, say what you will about Zack Snyder, but he did consume comics voraciously and set all of his actors massive reading lists to chunk through them, to the point of where Ben Affleck was reading The Dark Knight Returns repeatedly in his trailer to make sure he got an accurate portrayal of Bruce Wayne, and I think he pulled it off marvellously. Again, most people really like the casting even if you don't like the movies. But what that articulation there is saying, the fans are the only reason we have a job in the first place because they've bought a lifelong amount of material and dedicated themselves to this so that we are allowed to inherit that material, and we have an expectation, like the continuity of civilization, to inherit something and do it justice. If you disregard the fans' expectations to see what they love come to screen, then you won't have a job anymore because they won't give you money. And I understand most of this industry is propped up by ESGs and all sorts of subsidies to be woke as shit and never get woke and go broke. But in terms of financial accountability, if there is a glimmer of that left in Hollywood, you are burning through piles of cash by putting people off, including me and Harry specifically. And as you alluded to, one of the scenes that Cavill rewrote was Roach's death scene in season 2, because originally they were not going to have any dialogue and we're going to make it a comedic moment, and he actually made a eulogy for Roach the night before, referencing the book The Sword of Destiny, because he's the only person on set that actually bloody read the books. But there you go. Speaking of diversity over accuracy, let's go straight to Superman, shall we? James Gunn is writing a Superman movie. Now, the interesting thing to come out of this wasn't just that it might be Elliot Page, and that seems unlikely until you realise that Elliot Page will not be paying Clark Kent, but rather John Kent, the bisexual son of Superman, who's very lithe and not at all effeminate. The interesting thing from the Hollywood Reporter is it says the project will focus on the younger years of the hero and thus will be played by a new actor rather than Superman veteran Henry Cavill. Gunn and his DC Studios co-chair and CEO Peter Safran recently met with Cavill to share the news and discuss ideas for potentially collaborating in the future on something else, perhaps a different role. But Warner's has also been developing...
How could you bring back Henry Cavill
Kingdom
and
Come.
not...
But he said he's departing Superman, so Cavill obviously saw their prospects for Kingdom Come and went, no thanks, you're gonna contort it. The interesting thing though in this is that Warner's has also been developing a capital B black Superman film written by Ta-Nehisi Coates and produced by J.J. Abrams.
Just do it, fine. Just
Well, they
do
are.
it, give us content, please. I would love to make a premium video on how terrible that film is, because it will be.
Gunn's new movie has no impact on this project, with Coates still working on the script. We had some possible script leaks reported by Bounding Into Comics.
Oh, go on, yeah.
So, the article follows a source that's a little bit source, trust me, bro. So we have to take it all with a grain of salt. But Bounding has reported on some pretty accurate rumours in the past. So, it's not a period piece like it was first pitched. It was originally pitched as Superman in the 1930s because he wanted to do about depression and wanted to, as Grant Morrison once said, the socialist champion of the oppressed.
All right,
Superman was never a socialist, but there you go. He doesn't have most of his powers. He can only leap tall buildings in a single bound and have super strength. He has no frost breath, laser eyes, X-ray vision, all that sort of thing. And it is commencing with colourblind casting. Now, what that means is Ta-Nehisi Coates is going to pick a black bloke because Ta-Nehisi Coates is a critical race theorist. The villain is Ultra Humanite, not Lex Luthor, because Ultra Humanite was Lex Luthor's predecessor in the comics, and he's not going to have his big monkey body, because of course that would be racist.
Just do it.
The source says Lois Lane is written with an Asian American actress in mind. Perry White is written as African American, because that's something that Zack Snyder did by appointing Lawrence Fishburne, one of the missteps. Jimmy Olsen is described as a freckled redhead. No race bending with a redhead.
I'm so shocked.
Source must be fake, guaranteed.
Yeah, this
the
is
dyslexic Hollywood
not
producers
true.
are not swapping any. Anyway, so not everyone took kindly to the pandering. That's actually a good thing. So we're going to end on a positive note, because despite being a Bernie bro, despite capitalizing the B in black, Ray Fisher, Cyborg, who has stuck by Zack Snyder forever, after this news came out, and this is the only thing he's tweeted recently, is, do you all remember that time that Walter Hamada, former head of Warner Brothers, and WB Pictures tried to destroy a black man's credibility, him, and publicly delegitimize a very serious investigation into sexual malpractice in the Justice League set? by Joss Whedon towards Wonder Woman with lies in the press. But hey, Black Superman, accountability over entertainment. Burning a goddamn bridge. Well done.
Well, yeah, I mean, Ray Fisher, like you've alluded to there, might be politically on the opposite aisle to us, but at the very least, he does seem to have some integrity and loyalty to his friends. Well, I've got to respect that.
When he got up at Comic-Con, after they'd fired Zack to replace him with Joss Whedon, when Zack just wanted time off to go to his daughter's funeral after she committed suicide, he got up at Comic-Con and went on stage like a complete maverick, ripped his shirt off to reveal an I Heart Zack Snyder shirt underneath. He never, at any point, supported the Justice League version.
Okay, Ray Fisher is earned a bit of respect there, because at the very least, once again, loyalty to friends and people you care about should be above such political matters.
And he was a very good cyborg.
Yeah. Oftentimes in the modern era, they're not, so to see somebody, especially within the Hollywood sphere, have loyalty to someone is shocking, and, you know.
Seeing a leftist manifest the virtue of sanctity, and that's pretty surprising. Especially when he decided to go scorched earth on James Gunn and never get hired at DC again in the next tweet. The way James Gunn uses fake Drace on Twitter is really funny. Him going to bat for Joss Whedon, pseudo-apologizing for it, and then deleting it immediately before taking his new DC job is not. Refusing to apologize for toxic behavior seems to be a job requirement of Warner Brothers DC.
All right, fair play.
Just alienate Jeff Johns and everyone at it while you're at it. And if you scroll down, James Gunn says, "I have auto-delete on my tweets, bro." There's definitely nothing weird about it here. You did make buddies with Joss Whedon, who was a notorious sex pest and leftist, and then make lots of jokes about molesting children, which got you fired from Disney, which is funny because I didn't think Disney would have a problem with that.
Joss Whedon is a self-confessed male feminist, which at this point is just an admission of guilt.
Yeah, so everyone's failing upwards, and Ray Fisher has at least taken them to task. But, and we obviously have the 40k series that Henry Cavill's doing to soothe ourselves over. I'm sure Nick and Carl are going to be delighted about this. Ricator.
I know people are worried because it's an Amazon product, but Amazon did produce the Terminal list, which was shockingly based in areas, and I do think that with Cavill as an executive producer, it has a greater shield against wokeness than it would otherwise, because it seems that when Amazon just gives a product over to an executive producer who actually cares about it, they seem to give them at least a decent amount of creative freedom.
So we have all that to cope with. However, if we go to the last panel, this is all we have. This is all that I have as a Snyder fan. This is all that you have as someone who liked Batman v Superman. And at least an affirmative vision for DC films. Because, I know, cape shit, grow up, whatever. I really enjoy these as escapist stories. They're an important piece of American history as to how Americans reflect on themselves at wartime. And I grew up on these comics, and they could be really wholesome. And just because you don't care about the culture war is invested in you, and specifically your kids and what they're consuming. And so DC has been abandoned to the types that make a Batman movie where Catwoman lectures you on white privilege. This is not meant to be dispiriting, because Cavill will have undoubted success in all of his endeavors. He seems like a very happy and wholesome guy, and I really respect him. But it's just a missed opportunity to not have someone who in many places was, and definitely could have been out into the future, the perfect Superman, disregarded by the progressive hegemon again. You bastards, you robbed my dreams from me.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content we have on the site, such as the premium videos we do, this one on the politics of Mulholland Drive. If you'd like to find out what else we're putting out, you can follow us on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.